Here's Hillary's comment on race.
I think implicit bias is a problem for everyone, not just police. I think, unfortunately, too many of us in our great country jump to conclusions about each other.
Former Republican presidential candidate who has endorsed Donald Trump, Dr. Ben Carson, joins me now on the phone. Good to have you on, Dr. Carson.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, Doctor. Implicit bias, that sounds like a new one. And the question is, how can she or anyone reasonably argue that all 300 million Americans have implicit bias?
Well, you know, that's part of the playbook here. Democrat Politics 101. You, first of all, continue to repeat the thing, in this case, racism, so that when you go out and you talk to people who really are not well informed, who haven't been following things, who don't read for themselves, you want them to associate that word with your opponent, or with Donald Trump in this case. But the other thing that Hillary was trying to do was push Donald Trump's buttons. It was about getting him angry so that he would say something that would then be the story for the next week or two. Fortunately, he was able to resist that.
Dr. Carson, is implicit bias a new way of saying statements like systemic racism? And we've heard the term used, systemic racism, after what happened in Tulsa. I mean, what do you make of that?
Yes, it's essential that they get people to believe that there are a lot of victims in our society and that there is general unfairness. Because how can you argue for fundamentally changing a society if it's okay, if the society is okay? So you've got to make our whole society look like there's a big problem here in order for people to accept your radical changes. I mean, that's again, right out of Saul Alinsky's playbook.
Dr. Carson, what do you think? Do you think it will work with the undecided voter? I mean, for example, Hillary has less than half the millennial vote that President Obama did in 2012. And we were seeing the polls, some suburban women still leery about voting for Hillary Clinton, and that's what polls suggest. What do you make of that?
Well, they should be leery about voting for her because, again, she's trying to make this about, you know, I'm the first female major presidential candidate, and, you know, you owe me something. Everybody owes me something. Society owes me something. It's not working because, as with many people in the minority community, many women think for themselves. And they think about what is actually good for them, what is good for their children and their grandchildren. And they could care less about a person's color or a person's gender. But, you know, she's painting a picture where we have a society where everything is about race and gender. And you have all of these attempts to drive wedges between people on the basis of gender, race, income, age, religion, you name it.
Dr. Carson, crime also came up, and Hillary said that crime has continued to drop, including murders. Let's take a listen.
Well, it's also fair to say, if we're going to talk about mayors, that under the current mayor, crime has continued to drop, including murders. So there is...
Wrong. You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
Murders are up.
Yeah.
All right, you check.
New York...
All right, here's what happened. We see that the FBI reporting crime went up last year. Homicides up more than 10%. Violent crime increasing by nearly 4%. Hillary Clinton may have been talking about New York City murders, which are down. They're lower at this time this year versus last year. So the question is about crime. Dr. Carson, do you think Hillary has a strong argument on crime here, or does Donald Trump?
Well, there's no question that crime is on the increase nationally, and the FBI report just came out on that. So, you know, those are the facts. Now, you can parse the facts, and you can look at this region or that region, but you know, the overall problem of crime is going up, and we need to hear from the candidates. What are you going to do about that, as opposed to denying that it's happening? And this happens so often. You know, it's a prime example, unemployment. They say, there's no unemployment problem. the number is 4.9%. Well, of course, you can make that number anything you want, depending on who you include and who you exclude. Well, by the same token, with the crime statistics, you can play around with numbers to get the result that you want. But the fact of the matter is that FBI reports that violent crime is going up.
Thank you, Dr. Ben Carson. Really good to be with you tonight. Thanks.